Hi, bitch besties. It's your main bitch, Melly. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to another episode of the Judgy Bitch Pod. Hello, bitch besties. Welcome to another episode of the Judgy Bitch Pod. And look who's here. This is my new foster puppy, Pixie. She might be barking in the background, so focus on us here and not on her. But I wanted you all to meet her. And today we have a really special episode because all of us, we use those terms OCD, PTSD so loosely. So I figured we need our professional to come back on, my favorite person to explain everything. Here's for you guys, the self-esteemed counselor, Lauren. Hello, Lauren.
Hi, what an intro. Thank you.
You just explain it in a way that I understand it and it resonates with me. And I see myself in your explanation sometimes, so I just figured you're the best person for this job. You need to explain all of this for us. And just a heads up for the bitch besties, I mentioned two topics right now, OCD and PTSD. We'll start with OCD. We'll see how we get through the episode. We might push out PTSD to a different time next time Lauren comes on. Yes, I'm claiming her for us. So let's get started, Lauren. Is OCD used wrongly or misconceptionally in the regular usage of everybody's language? Because everybody always says, I have OCD. Do you agree with that?
Oh, there's a huge misconception with OCD. If you have a need to be super clean and super organized, I think it gets confused with type A personality a lot of times. But yeah, no, OCD is definitely not a personality quirk. It is something a lot different. And kind of like how an octopus is a squid, but not all squid are octopi. I think I said that. I hope I said that correctly. It's
Okay.
kind of the same thing, like those, so like being cleanly or having those habits or rituals can be a part of OCD, but it's not OCD.
Yeah. I once had a very uncomfortable situation in a job interview, actually. And, as an executive assistant, it's so easy to say, I'm super OCD about it, just meaning I'm very detail oriented, very cleanliness. And, that's what I meant to say. But I said, oh, I'm OCD. And the person who interviewed me was like, I would not ever say that in an interview. That's a mental disorder. People actually struggle with that. You make such light of it when you use it in the wrong way. I would not say that. Like she scolded me in the interview process, but I was actually thankful to her because she's
Mhm,
right. She's
mhm.
had a point there, right? What is the harm
Yeah.
of using it in the wrong context?
Well, because people who have been diagnosed with OCD and experience OCD every single day, it is absolutely horrific. It's not something to make light of because it really traps someone in their mind. A lot of times we might see some externals to it, but a lot of times it happens within someone's mind and it really takes from their life. They can't live the life that they want to live when they have it. And it is a very fear-based disorder. So it's very distressing. A person is typically not, when they're have active OCD symptoms, it is not pleasant at all. If anything, that's why I wonder if the person was a little offended by it because they may know someone or even themselves may have those symptoms that are really truly, they at times feel horrifying.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And it's a very thin line, I believe, between your personal quirk, so to say, and actual OCD, right?
Yes, because like again, if you are someone who likes to be clean, which again, that's not even OCD is so much big, like there's so many different types of OCD than that, but to be clean and tidy and to like make light of that, that is one thing, but then to add it to something that is, again, it traps people in their minds and in a lot of ways, again, like I said, takes from their quality of life. Again, it's not a personality quirk. It's not something that's lighthearted. It's something if they could never have that type of thought that they're having ever again, or that type of compulsion that they're having, they would never do it again if they could.
Yeah. So let's empower the bitch besties with knowledge. What is, in simple terms, what is OCD?
OCD is a disorder. It's obsessive compulsive disorder, just to say it, fully out, that involves intrusive, and I want to say this clearly, unwanted thoughts, images, or urges, obsessions. And there's repetitive behaviors with it, the compulsion. So there's an obsession, something that you're thinking about that is unwanted. Even sometimes there's a disgust with it. And then there is a compulsion with it to make that unwanted thought not happen. So that's where the compulsion comes from. If I do this compulsion, then it's gonna stop this obsession. But what happens is that the compulsion actually makes the obsession keep on going and becoming stronger.
Very interesting. Why do they often attack the worst possible things someone can imagine? Like those intrusive thoughts that pop into your mind, they're usually bad ones, right? They're not good ones.
Again, they're unwanted. They're typically unwanted or they're disturbing. And so, there's a lot of different types of OCD. So, like a lot of again, it's unwanted. The way that a lot of times it's described in the mental health field is almost like it's like a glitch. I have this awesome workbook that I use with children that gives the description of a conveyor belt with toys, and on one side are the toys that are like, all like ready to go out, into the store, and they're all put together really well. And it's like, okay, those are like all the thoughts that, you typically will have, that you have throughout the day. And then all there's junk thoughts. So all the pieces that don't like that won't come, into the store are going to go in the trash. They're junk thoughts. We don't need them, and they could be anything that you're thinking of, but they're just not helpful. So most people, those thoughts just go in the trash. But what happens in the OCD mind, there's a little glitch. And those thoughts that are the trash thoughts, for some reason, are going on the same side as the thoughts that are going in the store. And so all of these thoughts are coming in together. And so the ones that most people know, like go in the trash, they go in the trash. We don't need to think about those ones. That would never happen, or that's not going to happen. It goes on the conveyor belt and stays. And it feels very much like, why is this thought sticking in my head? Why is this staying here? Well, this must mean this. And it becomes very overwhelming and hard to determine what's a thought that needs to stay and what's one that needs to go in the trash.
Interesting. Is OCD also a spectrum? Last time we recorded an episode, we talked about narcissism and we, said it's pretty much a spectrum. Is OCD also a spectrum? Can it be more severe with some people and the mildlier version for other people?
That's so interesting. I never really thought of it that way. I'm going to be honest. Like, I've never thought of OCD as a spectrum, but there are different types and how they impact people. And so, no matter what, it really is based off of, I would rather, instead of saying a spectrum, it's based off of distress level. So, when we look at OCD, it's more so the thought that comes in that's unwanted or disturbing or disgusting. It's, it alarms the person and it becomes very distressing in the body. And so there is a type of therapy that is used. It's probably the most evidence based with OCD is ERP, exposure response prevention. And they use something called like a units of distress scale is what they're using. And so depending on how much like a obsession distresses someone, it can be how much more maybe intense it may be for someone or how much of it has a hold. Now, there are some people with OCD, like talking about a spectrum, if someone has it, like, I don't want to necessarily say worse than someone else, but some people have multiple obsessions. That's where it gets complicated. When someone has more than one obsession, having one obsession is already awful enough, but there are some people that have more than one obsession. So then it feels like, oh gosh, what do I tackle first? Where do I start? All of these thoughts cause me, you know, really a lot of discomfort and distress. So, as you can see, it's a lot of like, oh no, what is going to happen? This is going to happen. I've never, again, like thought of it as a spectrum, as I would say, like a scale of like how much distress is it causing someone.
Interesting. And you said there's different types of OCDs. What types are there?
Oh my gosh, we could talk a lot about the types, but just a few. Like there's moral OCD or scrupulosity, which is religious OCD. And that's when you're thinking at the core, like the obsessions can come out a little bit differently for everyone, but it could be like, I'm a bad person is the obsession, or am I a bad person, or am I a bad person if I do this, or what if I'm a bad person? It could even come from the core of that. If it's going to be more of like religious scrupulosity, like which again is on the moral side, it will be like oh my gosh, like I am like gonna go to hell. I'm not, I'm gonna be excommunicated, like I'm a failure. Those thoughts are, what if this happens? So there's a lot of what ifs that happen with it too. There is a um I don't want to say cleanliness obsession, but it's more so an obsession with getting like sick or ill or contaminated. It's called contamination OCD, where if you feel like you touch something that you will get sick or contaminated. And so there's a lot of, obsession with that. That's where the cleanliness, I think the cleaning comes in with that one. A lot. So there's a harm OCD or a pedophile themed OCD where you have this fear that you're going to become a predator, become a pedophile. So there's a lot of different. I mean, there's relationship OCD. There are so many different. There's just like obsessive thought type of OCD. There's so many different types of OCD that are out there and obsessions that can start. The OCD, the obsession compulsive loop.
Yeah. I think for me, the most prominent ones that I heard of when I first started hearing about OCD is the cleanliness one, where people wash their hands 100 times because they feel dirty or they're afraid of germs or whatever. And the compulsive then is the hand washing nonstop. And I think the other one I heard about early on in my life was the checking one, where people can't leave their apartment because they need to check the stove, for example, or if they turned off the curling iron or whatever for a million times and they basically never leave the apartment because they just can't come to the conclusion it's turned off. What's happening there in the brain?
So what's happening is that the obsession, so there's an obsession and then there's a compulsion. Think of it like a hamster wheel. Okay. So a hamster wheel that's still a circle. And at the very top, think of at the very, very top, there's the obsession. So whatever that obsession is. So if it is contamination, let's say at the very, very tippy top of that, the way that the person's thinking, I got this has to go away. I can't keep thinking this. This can't be here. What's going on? I need this feeling that I am going to get sick or I'm going to get contaminated needs to go away. There then comes what starts moving the cycle is a compulsion. That's what happens. Okay. And so in regards to that, like, oh my gosh, I just touched something that means, I'm going to get sick, my whole body, like I'm not going to be able to be around other people. You would possibly, that's one compulsion is wash your hands. And then actually compulsion drives the obsession. So it actually makes it stronger. You think it's going to make it go away washing your hands, but what it does is it makes the obsession stronger and it makes the wheel start going. And so that thought will come up again, the obsession of, oh my gosh, I just touched this. What if? What happens? And then the compulsion, it may be I'm going to wash my hands longer. The way like that you can look at OCD that I find that is helpful to explain it to people or to help them process through the goal, like what I was saying before about the conveyor belt. The goal for the person who has OCD and diagnosed with OCD is to identify the difference. Like they have to figure out now the difference between the junk thoughts and the thoughts that stay around.
Mm.
And there is a difference. There's a clear difference in the way that OCD talks to you. I personally like to personify the OCD. So, I'll have clients give a name and personify. What does it really feel like it is for you? I could tell you a slew of different names, that people have picked, but a lot of them go with like, I'm going to go with the theme of like dictator. It's like, you have to do this. And if you don't do it, this will happen to you. And so, of course, that's why it's not just like simply like, oh my gosh, I touched like trash. I got to wash my hands. It's not that simple. It becomes if you don't wash your hands right now, this will happen to you. Worst case scenario is going to happen to you. And so that's what kind of happens and keeps the loop going because that part sounds so believable. It looks like it's on the conveyor belt. It's a good thought. I need to have this thought. This thought's going to protect me. And what people find is that they get stuck on the loop and then the demands become more and more and more and more. So then it may become like, oh my gosh, was this pot fully cleaned? Is this really clean? Can I really trust it's clean? Well, if I put food in it and I eat food and I ingest food now, well then I'm going to get really contaminated if this pot was dirty. So
Mm.
I need to make sure that I wash all the pots before I eat anything.
Yeah.
It starts going to more and more and takes from you, kind of like what you're talking about checking. The same thing. Like, I can't even leave my house because my body, like OCD or whatever personified name you want to give it or idea, won't let me leave the house because I have to check that I didn't plug in the toaster 100 times, but I can't leave today. That's where it comes in, where it becomes, like I was saying, you get trapped. You cannot live your life. It takes from your quality of life when you get stuck in that loop. So I hope that gives a good idea of like how trapping and like devastating it is because it really takes from how you live your life and want to live your life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're explaining it very well as usually. And Dina from Vanderpump Rules talks about a lot that she has postpartum OCD, Which makes me wonder, can you just get OCD out of nowhere, or do we know what causes it?
But there's a lot of factors, just like with anything in mental health. Like it could be hereditary. It can be, a lot of times we're finding a lot more now that it's hereditary. OCD, there's a lot of research being done that it's part of, like, when we talk about spectrum, neurodivergence is a term that's been, a lot more research has been done with neurodivergence, and OCD is found to be on that neurodivergent spectrum. So a lot of that can be hereditary for sure. Those patterns, it could be something does trigger it, like a change in life or something like that might exacerbate it a little bit more or make it more evident. Like what I was saying with relationship OCD, it may not start until you get in a relationship with someone. Also, too, it can happen, like, I have found that people that maybe have GAD or generalized anxiety disorder, if they have become really distressed, a lot of times they will start showing OCD symptoms. If they're under a lot of pressure or stress or something, you might start noticing, wait, do I have OCD? But it really starts looking like it. A lot of things can look like OCD when you think about it. It's a loop. So there, it's not, it is not generalized anxiety, like I just said. There's a lot more avoidance with generalized anxiety, which there's avoidance, of course, with OCD, but they're different. And so the way that you would treat them would be different, of course. But there are a lot of reasons why, that OCD would be maybe stronger in some seasons than others. Some people might get diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and actually have OCD. So sometimes they might be misdiagnosed as well, where they had it their whole lives and they just never noticed it because they didn't tell anyone. It can be something that you can kind of hide and not tell other people, sometimes, not all the time. And then also, too, there's different life events that can happen as well.
Interesting. And this might be a very silly question. I apologize in advance. But can you somehow give yourself OCD? And I mean by that, when I'm in my car, for example, and I set the AC or the heat, I always want to set it to odd numbers. If I set it to an even number, I feel uncomfortable. So I always set it to an odd number. And then I'm thinking, you have OCD traits a little bit. Like, this is unusual. Why are you so fixated on a number? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you talk about give yourself, I mean, I don't necessarily know, like you either have it underlying or you don't, that glitch is there or not. There can be things that, like I said, that look like it. I've said this before, that disordered eating or eating disorders can sometimes have a pattern that looks like an OCD pattern. Even phobias can look like they have an OCD pattern to them. But it all goes with the distress level. I go back to the distress level. Is it causing you great distress? So if you were to put it on, an odd number, how high is your distress going? Are you going to have to pull over the car and not drive because of it? Like, if it got stuck on that number, like, what would happen? And depending on that stress level, like, those are OCD symptoms. You're looking at patterns. When we look at any diagnosis, you're looking at patterns and length of time. And so if it's taking, like a lot of time to get through the day because of the obsession is holding you back, or the compulsions are holding you back, really, then that is where we talk about disorder. Okay, because you're looking for patterns and consistent patterns that keep happening. But not everything is necessarily, just because you have a compulsion with something doesn't necessarily mean you have OCD.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. Can you
Right.
have a mix of different OCD types?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that before. Like, some people have multiple obsessions. And so, yes, for sure, you can. That's where it makes it more complicated. I always like give the example that OCD and many times can be like a whack a mole, that once you work on one obsession that pops out, haha, another obsession might pop up somewhere else. And it's like, cool, I feel great about this one, but now I have this other obsession over here. So that happens more often than you would think.
Wow, crazy. And you mentioned it earlier, and you also posted it the other day on your Instagram about this woman who thought that she might be a pedophile, but in reality, she had OCD. Can you explain a little bit, why do those intrusive thoughts feel so real? She was completely convinced that she's not a good human because of that.
Yes. So it really comes from the obsession and then the emotion linking to it. So a lot of times, the way that a lot of clinicians will talk about thoughts, that thoughts are just, they're just thoughts. Like, they're like birds in the sky. Birds fly by all the time, and that means nothing. But when you attach an emotion, your emotion to it, and are like, no, that's where the distress comes up. And that's what activates OCD, is that distress level. Like I was saying about the numbers in your car. So that woman, oh, that article upset me, obviously. And then I think I caused a little hysteria with what I wrote because people were confused, thinking I was like condoning like pedophilia. No, thank you. Like, I do not condone pedophilia. I don't condone any child abuse of any sort or any harm of any kind. And so that's not what I was talking about, the misconception. It was that type of OCD was uncommon, which it's already a type of OCD that it does not is not talked about enough, and is it's not made aware for people to understand that a lot of people that have it have a lot of shame with it, right? Because then they really truly think they are a pedophile or that they will become a pedophile. And so it becomes so real. Like I said, those junk thoughts come over onto the side. That's like, oh, these are just all the thoughts I'm supposed to have. Where most people, they would go in the trash immediately. Like,
Yeah.
no, just because, I saw a child on TV doesn't mean I'm a pedophile, but that's what happens in the mind of someone that unfortunately has OCD. It becomes a, well, what if? What if this thought, it makes me into this? And then they do all these slew of compulsions that they believe are that OCD, the dictator, will tell them that they have to do in order to never become a pedophile. And it's like they're not going to become a pedophile. It's OCD. Like, they're in that loop, but it gives them, the issue is how much distress it gives them and shame it gives them.
So by you mentioning that, that also means it's very normal to have the weirdest thoughts sometimes, right? Like sometimes I think of somebody dying, but then as you explain it, it goes in the trash for me. There's no compulsion there. But it is normal to have all kinds of weird thoughts, right?
We have intrusive thoughts all the time. They happen all the time. I can remember one that I had. I have a son who's now 12, which is crazy. But when I first had my son, I had the craziest intrusive thought, one that I've never experienced in my life before. And I'll be honest, it scared me. I was like, whoa, I've never had that before. And it did alarm me. And then I had a hard time shaking that thought. But then I had the realization, well, he's my most prized possession. Like, of course, I'm going to have that type of thought because I don't want anything awful to happen to him. And once I was able to see the separation of that, of like, that's not going to happen. I like, you have that realization, the distress or that fear goes away. And so the goal with like OCD, or how to overcome OCD, and where ERP comes from, exposure response prevention, is to start to, it sounds so easy and it's not, okay? It's to take the compulsion away. When you take the compulsion away, it will lessen the obsession. But the hard part is that when people have OCD and the type of level of distress, and like what you were talking about in your car, people feel like they're going to die. Like, it's not like a, if I don't do this, like, it's no big deal. Like, I know it's not going to happen. It's a, if I don't do this, worst case scenario will happen. And it feels like if I don't do it, I'm going to die. This is worse. I can't handle this. And so we obviously don't want to then cause, talking about post-traumatic stress, we don't want to cause trauma on people because of it. So that's why exposure therapy is not the go-to with this. It's ERP, which you're kind of, instead of taking the compulsion, like, think of the obsession on top, like I was saying, and the compulsion drives the obsession to get stronger and stronger. The goal then is to almost like cut at the compulsion. You're trying to cut at it little by little at places where you feel like you can and are capable of doing it. And the goal is, each time you stop doing those compulsions, like, so for example, we talked about washing your hands. Like, if the compulsion is contamination or fear of contamination, then, to wash your hands, the goal would be like, a goal, this is one option. If, again, if this is the one compulsion, because a lot of times there's multiple compulsions, this is what makes it complicated, is that when you have these compulsions, that it would be, okay, the way I'm going to fight, OCD today is I'm not going to listen to it for 10 seconds. I'm going to wait, and then I can wash my hands. And that 10 seconds is going to make your distress level, or that person's distress level, go up so high. Like, oh my gosh, the longer I wait, this could happen. This could really, really happen. But the goal is to wait for the distress level to get down just even a notch and a notch. And the more times you do it, it's like, okay, well, next time I'm going to do 20 seconds. The next time I'm going to do 30 seconds until that compulsion is completely gone. And it's like, okay, like, I don't need to wash my hands every time I touch something. I can, if it's something that, now the difference between an unhelpful thought and a helpful thought. It's like, okay, if I touch my hand on some dirt, I'll wash my hands. I have dirt on my hands. But other than that, I'll be okay. And the goal is for it to get to a certain level. It depends on how people do their own distress levels. So the units of distress, like I said, some will do like 0 to 10 and some will do 0 to 100. But like you're looking, like you have to pick ones too that are like in a zone that you're not going to get too distressed where it feels impossible and then you can get discouraged and you're like, I'm never going to get over this. And sometimes when people pick um compulsions to try to, expose themselves to or reduce from, and they're too high, like let's say it's closer to like 100 out of 100 or 90 out of 100, and they can't, it's going to make them feel defeated, but also it may like create other complications, if I could say. So, like what I was saying, like it could cause post traumatic stress disorder. It could cause like depersonalization. Like this is too hard. I'm going to detach from myself. So it could cause a whole a slew of other issues as well, and keep that person trapped. The goal is to set the person and their mind free.
I understand. So you mentioned that ERP therapy, I think it's called, right? Is there also medication? I think people also take medication to help with OCD.
It depends. So, like, obviously, we are free to choose whatever treatment we get. Research shows that therapy plus medication is what like probably the best option for many people, but some people don't like medication does not agree with them. And so they go to therapy on a regular basis. Some people only take medication that really works for them. They found like the medication really helps them be able to not like get activated so quickly by that stress level where they're able to say, oh, that's OCD. I don't need to even engage with that. Like, so that's what happens as well. And so some people, it just depends on the person. Sometimes someone needs to take medication just temporarily because they're getting so activated, so high, so distressed that they can't even fight OCD. It's like, okay, why even bother? Because I'm getting so entrapped by this. Like, what's the point? Sometimes it's like temporary medication helps. Okay, I feel like I can now I know the sounds and the ideas and the thoughts of OCD. I know the smell of it that I can now know and not give it the attention. Because really, an obsession is when you're giving it the attention. So the birds that fly by, it's like, no, that bird means something that's dangerous right there. And it's more so, it's just a bird.
Yeah. And somehow anxiety plays a huge role in OCD as well, right? That always goes hand in hand.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not, it's interesting. There's been a lot of research that's gone into that. It's, again, it's not necessarily an anxiety disorder, but it's more of a distress, is what you're looking at, but it is fear. When you look at the obsessions, they're all like fear based or disgust based, I will say. So it's like something you don't, very unwanted. You don't want it to happen. And so, yeah, there can be avoidance with it as well. Those intrusive thoughts that are also part of anxiety, but there also are differences. Like I was talking about generalized anxiety disorder, like a differential is that it's more so like a broad life worry. Like you're worried about most, like, oh gosh, what if this happens, or what if I don't get into this school? And that it's not the same as connecting it to like this is going to happen to me and this will happen and I will become this. So it's very different. And also too, there's different tactics with like treating anxiety with OCD. Like sometimes reassurance with anxiety can sometimes help, but like an OCD, that is a no-go. Like you do not reassure someone, that will keep the obsession continually going. So like in regards to I think I was talking about moral OCD, like am I a bad person? Like that person may do self reassurance by like Googling what makes someone a bad person. They might go to a family member and be like, do you think I'm a bad person or do you think I'm a good person? And the goal is to be like, I think OCD is talking to you right now. Like, you need to deal with OCD. Like, that sounds like a thought that's not of yours. And so they can determine, like, oh, that's an OCD thought. And they can start making sure that those thoughts you don't need to pay attention to those thoughts and they go in the trash. And that what your biggest fear that you're thinking is going to happen is like, it's not, it's a facade. It's not going to happen.
Interesting. Can you cure OCD completely?
So the goal, I always say this, it's not necessarily like you're not looking to like never have an intrusive thought ever again or a distressing thing or an obsession, but there is maintenance. Like I think the goal is really about stopping someone or helping them stop obeying the fear or obeying the dictator, like I talked about it. Like there's freedom in that. So the goal is knowing the difference between the thoughts and like, oh, I don't have to give thought to that. So there might be times where like someone touches something, going back to contamination OCD, like touches something and they're like, do I wash my hands with this or not? Like, right? That may happen still, but or there might be like it might pause them or stop them in their tracks. And so those things might happen, but it's all about maintenance. I like the word maintenance. Are you maintaining? Do you feel like you're in charge of that part of you? And as long as you're in charge of that part of you, then you're able to live a quality of life. That's what we're looking for. So it's not to say that you're never going to have like anxiety or distress feelings ever again, or that thought's going to come up you're not going to hold on to. It's more so having the tools to realize I feel like I can overcome this and take this, because I think people that I see that are in maintenance with OCD, it's never again about not having those, like, OCD can try to trick whatever, they want to trick you with. And it's more so knowing, like being aware, like, oh, you're not going to fool me this time. I got it.
Yeah, so you can pretty much exercise it, right? And become better at it.
Exactly. That's the exact thing. It's being more aware of the tactics of OCD, and that's how you overcome OCD.
Right. But there's no way to stop those intrusive thoughts, right?
It's not necessarily, they will stop once you stop doing the compulsion. That is the goal. Like, that is really truly like once you are able to not, like, the obedience comes from complying with the compulsion, but the goal is not to do that compulsion. And the less and less you do a compulsion, the less those thoughts will come in there. But thoughts will come in here and there of like, let me decipher. Like, there might still be effort that has to be done of like, is this one I give attention to or not? That still may happen as well. But once you have the tools, like, it's again, you're looking to be less distressed, and there's more confidence involved with it of like, you're not going to trick me, OCD. And sometimes it does come in. Sometimes, there's, like I was saying about, there can be certain times in life or adjustments to life that happen that we never expected in our lives, and it could trigger it again. And it could be in a different way. It could be in another way that you never expected, a different obsession, or it could be the same obsession with now different compulsions. That's why I think OCD is so misunderstood, because there's so many different types. There's so many different ways that it can look. It's not one size fits all.
Yeah. And you touched on it. If I'm someone who lives with somebody who has OCD, how can I support that person?
I think, obviously not reassure. That's probably like the biggest thing, is not to be like, what are you talking about? That's like not even going to happen. That's not real. If anything, that it's again like feeding into the avoidance of it all. Like, it's another compulsion that makes an obsession stronger, because then it'll come up again. And then guess what they're going to do again? They're going to ask you for reassurance. So it's again just pointing them back, like, I'm not going to answer that. That sounds like an OCD thought. Because again, you're identifying the battle. You're identifying what they're trying to decipher and help identify. That sounds like an OCD thought. Like, I'm going to let you, and they might keep persisting on. You're also, too, like, a lot of times people with OCD can be very irritable to be around. And it's not necessarily what we think of like panic and anxiety when we think about something with distress. It's because they feel controlled by this obsession. So the compulsions are that control on them. And so if someone is interfering, like, hey, we got to like go, we got plans to do, we got like, reservations, and they might come back and snap back and be like, I'm not going, or leave me alone, or like, because they might be stuck in the shower, showering, doing the ritual of making sure that, oh, well, you made me mess up my ritual. I got to start all over from washing from head to toe. And so, like, that's another part. Get trapped in their bathrooms because they have to follow the dictator's orders of how to really become clean. And so that they can be more irritable as well. So being very patient with that person and understanding they're not trying to be irritable, or they're not trying to be difficult. It's not about like being harsher on them. If anything, they need more understanding and support and compassion of like, wow, I see how hard this is for you. Because most people with OCD know it's not, a lot of times they know it's not logical if they have self-awareness of it. It's like, no, I don't want to be in the shower for 3 hours. No, thank you. I don't want to be doing that over and over again. Most people know. And so that's why it's so hard, because they feel so controlled by this part of them. A lot of times, sometimes too, with people that have OCD, is that they will start distracting themselves from, well, if I distract myself from the obsession, then that'll make me feel better. But that is not a treatment. Okay. It is not. Distracting yourself from the, obsession and the compulsion you have is not going to lessen the obsession. It's just going to bring you back right back into the loop of it as well. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I want to mention too, there are other therapy or modalities that do help with the OCD treatment as well. I think ERP is the most researched on, but also I know a lot of clinicians that also will not solely do this, but like cognitive behavioral therapy, like it will help with some of those thoughts or replacing some of those thoughts of like, or even fighting back OCD of how to talk back to OCD of like, get lost, like leave me alone, you take from me. That's part of it of treatment as well. So there are other types of modalities that can be helpful as well with treating OCD. So I just want to mention that as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it sounds like OCD can really be like ruin someone's life, right? If you can leave your apartment because you're doing the compulsion, how do you go to work? How do you have a normal social life and all these things?
Exactly. I think that's the misconception is that like, oh, it's just like in that like, it's this thing where you're just a little cleanly and you have to be organized, but it really like I said, it takes from someone from their quality of life they're trapped. They are think about it being like enslaved to a dictator. That's the best way I can describe it of like if you don't do this, then this will worst case scenario will happen. That's really what it's like. And so, yeah, it does take from people. It takes from relationships. It takes from some people lose their jobs over it. Sometimes, some people get to a point where they don't eat. They stop eating. And so that there's a lot of things that go into some of these compulsions that really can harm a person, for real, like really harm them and their life and their quality of life. So there are some compulsions people just don't think about that would happen with someone with OCD. But no, if it's again going back to the contamination obsession, yeah, some people might stop going outside because they think the air might be contaminated. Like the dictator can convince them of that, or to stop brushing their teeth or maybe they need a new toothbrush every single time. They can't swallow the water because the water can be contaminated. Like OCD, the obsession that it can make you believe, if you don't know the difference between those junk thoughts and the thoughts that are, uh, more helpful and that belong, then it's going to be really hard to know which ones are believable and not believable, especially in the moment. Like some people, like even outside when they're not being maybe controlled by the dictator, they may have this, like a lot of times they'll have the sense to say, like, I know that's not going to happen to me. But in the moment, it feels like I'm shackled to it. Like I have to do it or the worst case scenario will happen. So that's where it also can be confusing too, because it could be like, well, I just saw them the other day. They were fine. And it's like, it's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. My puppy was eating my cable, my phone cable, and I don't need her to
Very,
be electrocuted today.
no, that's a very good reason to get up.
I'm telling you, having a puppy in the house is like having a toddler, and I did not realize how good Peanut actually is.
Oh, it's giving you good perspective. No, having a toddler, having a puppy is definitely challenging. It's a
Yes.
lot. Hold on.
So sorry for the distraction.
No, it's
But
all
back
good.
to OCD. When should someone start questioning themselves if they have OCD? What is like early signs, maybe?
I think definitely how the distress level with those thoughts, I think is a good sign. If you feel like the what ifs, are pretty telling. What if I become this is pretty telling as well. Again, if you see the loop like you talked about in your car, like if you notice a loop, again, not all loops are OCD, but I think even just having the thought with the distress level, how much distress is a thought having in your life? And how much are you thinking about it? Remember, an obsession is something you think about often.
Mhm.
You don't want to think about it, it's unwanted. So if you're having unwanted thoughts on a regular basis that are causing you distress, like it's time to start thinking, huh? I mean, most people, I'm going to tell you, and this is just from my own experience as a clinician, and I think a lot of clinicians would say this. A lot of people that come to see us have no idea that they have OCD until they come see us. They think that they have anxiety or something is, my quality of life has been taken from me. I feel trapped. It can be hard to diagnose too, because it looks like anxiety a lot of times, but it's different and it's way different treatment for both. So if you're going to be treated for anxiety, you'll notice that someone has OCD a lot of times too, because treatment's not working for anxiety. Then it's like, oh, this might be OCD we're dealing with.
Mm. Can you give a distinguishing between signs and normal behavior?
Um, like just to identify someone just like in what way? Like just like a random person off the street or like,
Like, for example, me with my heat in the car, or I have another example. Sometimes when I sit on the couch and I put like, I eat a candy bar and I put the wrapper on the table, it makes me feel so uncomfortable that the trash is sitting on my table that I have to get up and throw it away, right? Because otherwise I'm not feeling comfortable.
Mhm.
Obviously, I don't have OCD. I'm just crazy. No, I'm kidding. I'm, you know, I'm not,
You
I
can't
don't
say
have,
that to a therapist.
I know. I don't have the compulsion with that, So
No.
where's the fine line between this is a sign and this is just normal behavior?
Oh, that's a great, I think let's use that example. Okay. With the trash on the table. All right. So like for you, it's like a more so, and a lot of times the cleanliness of our house or how decluttered our houses is a direct correlation to how we feel in our brains. A lot of times research has shown that. And so that makes sense why you see that. It's like, oh, like, and also too, it's not how, if you're watching TV and to have like a nice, like, oh, I don't have to think about the house being disorganized or anything that brings relaxation. That's a little bit different, of course. And I know you're already have the awareness to know that that is not OCD. But the thought would be if that wrapper is there, like again, something unwanted or bad will happen. So if I leave that wrapper there, then that's going to leave germs that are going to spread through this house and it's going to make this house disgusting and I'm going to get sick and other people are going to get sick and or there's going to be ants that are going to come and like infiltrate the house and it's going to start going down. Do you see like the it's going down more about what if this happens? What if this happens? What if, and so I think that it's repetitive. You're looking for it's repetitive. This is not a one time thing and it's repetitive behavior. So if you start seeing it as a repetitive behavior or mental acts, compulsions, they're performed to reduce distress or prevent an outcome. So as you saw, the latter of mine was like preventing an outcome. What you're saying is like, okay, well, I just don't like it there. Like I see it. I just want to relax on my show, but I see it there and I don't like it. I hope that gives the clear distinction between the two of like, one is like going to be repetitive of like I cannot do this until this is done. And this is why, because think of it again, like the dictator is telling you, if you don't do that, this is going to happen.
Yeah, that makes total sense. When the letter moment happens, would you suggest to seek help? That's the time to go.
Well, again, it's up to that person. Everybody
Mhm.
is in charge of themselves. So, like, again, if I'm talking about a child that has it, their parents are going to see signs of, like, you know, my child can't get out of bed. My child can't get out of the shower. My child can't, you start noticing that my child's not eating. Like, you're going to start noticing behaviors. And so, where they're going to have to make the call as well. And so, when you start, again, it's goes with quality of life. If you see if they think that they are having so much distress that they cannot live their life, it's up to them to go to therapy or not. Other people can come in and be like, there is help with this. There are plenty of resources out there as well. I obviously recommend going to therapy, but there are plenty of like workbooks and books out there that educate very well about what OCD is and what OCD isn't and how to get help. So, yeah, I mean, it's really always, I mean, I'm a type of therapist that's client centered. So I'm like, if someone's going to come and be forced to come, it's not, the therapy won't be helpful. If the
Yeah.
person is like, this is too hard, it's going to be too hard. Then there's going to be barriers to it, for sure. OCD is a very challenging thing to overcome. It is not an easy thing, but it is possible. And it's very, very possible, but it is very challenging ERP is not easy. It's not easy to cut down those compulsions. And especially the way that we live our lives, like there's a lot going on. And so it's hard to be like, well, how do I really fight OCD and go against it and battle it and overcome it? And it does take a lot of effort. Distress takes a lot. It's tiring. It's exhausting. So there's a lot of energy that's put into fighting. That's why it's called fighting against OCD because it's a fight.
Yeah. Thank you so much for explaining it so well and for telling us the different types and how people really struggle and really analyzing it for us so we understand
Mhm.
better and we're empowered with knowledge. And I hope people take away from this episode to not use OCD, the term, lightly anymore, because it's really, discouraging for the people who actually struggle with that. But maybe one final thought. What is one thing you wish people understood about OCD?
Oh, it's a great question. I think the biggest thing I'd like to understand is that a lot of people with OCD, that it feels like a dictator, and also for other people to understand it feels like a dictator. It feels impossible in the moment. It's not just something that's like, it's not a personality quirk. It is a literal fear loop that someone gets stuck in. It's not easy to get off that loop and to do it. It's very challenging. It's very exhausting. And it really is, it's awful. It's an awful disorder that I would never wish upon anyone to have. It's really awful. And I think that for people to understand that, I mean, it's 2026, like we have given a lot of education that OCD is not just about cleanliness. It really has nothing to do with it. It's more so being trapped, with unwanted thoughts and it feeling awful within the body and can cause some really awful things in someone's life and from living the quality of life. Another thing I would love for people to know too, especially people that are going through OCD treatment or aware that they have OCD, is sometimes like, they think of it like the dictator is demanding them to do something in the certain time. And sometimes I like to like really expose what OCD is. It's like a little boy with a scary mask on and they take the mask off and it's like, it's you telling me to not do this, like really, like, but it's something that seems very scary. That's really like, when you go in a haunted house, it feels so scary because all the lights are off, and when you turn the lights on, it's like, oh, this is not real. That's kind of what OCD, that's why it feels so scary. So hopefully that gives more understanding for other people too. That's why it feels so scary. They just need to turn the light on and realize like, it's not, that's not going to happen. Okay.
Yeah. See, and you're the best in explaining it. And I also want to tell the bitch besties, go back and listen to our previous episodes, especially the narcissism episode. I got so much feedback on that episode. It was such a great episode. But also, bitch besties, please go and follow Lauren at the Self-Esteemed Counselor, TikTok and Instagram. And that's also where you can reach out to her. But before I let you go, Lauren, I do have a game for us. Obviously, we said at the top of the episode, we might also talk about PTSD, which I want to
Not
save
happen.
for another episode. Yeah, I want you to come back. I'm just claiming you.
I love it. Okay.
I should have a Lauren section, like a self-esteem counselor section for the job
Okay.
keepers.
I like it. Let's do it.
um, but most of the games I have prepared were OCD and PTSD, so I'm going to cut those out. We'll save them for next time. But I have one game that we can play real quick to wrap up this episode. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Super easy game. It's called This or That. What would you do? First one is ignore the thought or analyze it.
Ignore the thought.
Interesting. Face the fear or avoid it.
Face the fear.
Mm. Google your symptoms or sit with uncertainty. Last one.
Sit with uncertain. Sit with uncertainty. If I can say it, yes.
Okay, interesting. Lauren, tell my bitch besties again where they can find your services, how they can book you, where they can follow you, and please, bitch besties, do so.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm the self-esteemed with an ED counselor, the self-esteemed counselor. I give tips about self-esteem concepts, self-confidence, and all different types of concepts with mental health in general. And you'll see me dance on there as well at times because I love to dance. And then I also am found on Instagram. My practice is on there as well, Esteemed Counseling Center.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. I can wait for the next episode. Bitch besties, heads up, PTSD is the next topic. And also another heads up, I'm going to be on vacation next week when this episode airs. So next week there's a pause. There's no episode dropping. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on and explaining it so well. I love it as always. I see you next time. Thanks, bitch besties, for listening and watching. And let us know your feedback or your thoughts and your questions. We're here for you. Thank you. Cheers. Bye. Thanks, bitch besties, for listening. Make sure to follow us at the Judgy Bitch Pod. And hey, spread the word. Tell your friends, your ex, your dog walker. We'd love the support. Want to be part of the show? DM us your feedback, hot takes, or unapologetic opinions. We just might read them on air. And don't forget to follow, rate, and review the pod. See you next week. Cheers, bitches.